And welcome, a special welcome to Millie. Millie, do you want to just say a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Millie. I am born and bred in Boscombe in Bournemouth. Lived here my whole life. I work part-time for, two charities at the moment. So I work for Safe Families. So we help put support around, helping the church put support around families who are going through a tough time in their communities. I also work for another charity called Feed Our Community, which is part of Grounded, where we're looking at how we take supermarket waste and get that to people who need it, as well as looking at some of the environmental factors around growing food and how we keep food local and all the rest of it. So that's what I'm currently doing. But yeah, lots more other stuff that I've been involved with over the years as well. So
you're saying you've literally just moved house as well, is that right?
Yeah, literally, I got the keys Monday, so I'm currently in a slight state of disarray. You do not want to see this room. It's unbelievable. Yeah, so I'm just taking on a house, a vicarage with the diocese, to look after young people seeking asylum. So yeah, so I'll have my first young lad probably come move in beginning of April. So I've got 2 weeks to sort this place out and make it fit and ready in a home for many young people as need it, really.
Fantastic. And you're not a vicar though? So, no, yeah.
No.
There's something too about vicars honest to be one. I might cry.
We take dioceses empty vicarages, so.
But there is something quite exciting about the fact that they're actually realising that they have these amazing spaces and facilities that can actually be used to bless real people. Though that's a good thing.
Yeah, incredible.
Ooh,
so, sorry.
Oh, hang on.
There we go.
There you go. You're back.
Sorry, that was a phone call. Apologies.
Sorry, it's all right. We get them edited, so it's all okay. I do sometimes think though there's sometimes when I say stupid things or whatever, I do something. It must be kind of editing them going. Anyway, yeah, and so first time I met Millie, you were over in a house in Boscombe. Do you want to just tell us a bit about that project? How the Joy Cafe or Joy Community?
Yeah, so it's getting on for about 12 years now. I joined the Vineyard Church. I mean, I've grown up in Boscombe all my life, but Boscombe's, for those people who are local will know, it's got lots of challenges. And it's just lots of challenges around addiction and homelessness and all sorts of things. Lots of people are really isolated and lonely. And about 10 years ago, I moved to the Vineyard and I started getting involved with the addictions outreach there. Really sheltered upbringing, sheltered life. I was absolutely terrified the first time I went out. But I remember chatting to the first person in addiction I'd ever met. And I just felt like I'd come home, like fully come home to myself and to what I was made to do, which is probably why I was so scared in the first place. That normally is what happens, isn't it? And so I did that for sort of 4 years, but I wasn't living in the middle of Boscombe then. And to be honest, it was laziness more than anything. I was just like, I want to be able to open my front door and say hi to people and have people in rather than keeping having to drive around the streets. So I pray and ask God, okay, what I'd really like is a house. And I want a house on this particular road, and it needs to be either number 10, number 11, number 12, or number 13. And that was on Borthwick Road. And 2 years later, we got a phone call from Dave Wells, who owned number 10, Borthwick Road. And basically it was on the books, one of the worst crack houses in the country at the time. And it had featured on a documentary, and they knew that John Simpson and all his cronies would come back if they didn't do something with this house. And so they called us and said, look, do you want this house? And I said, well, where is this house? And they said, well, it's 10 Borthwick Road. I'm like, well, that's the house I've been praying for I don't know how many years. And so we came on and moved in, and really, like, God just said, be interruptible and available. That was all he really said. And so I thought, well, if we could get to know one new person every week, that's 52 people by the end of the year. Like, that's quite a lot of people who live on the square. And so just lived just really open-handed, open-hearted lives. There were quite a few of us living there, and we all decided to work as little as we needed to basically earn our keep and be able to exist and live, and give as much time as we could for people. Because I think in our day and age, what people really need more than anything is our time. And we're all so busy and also rushed. But actually, if we allow God to interrupt us, and if we give our lives space and time, oh my goodness, the things he will do if we allow ourselves to be interrupted is unbelievable. Because as I look at the Gospels, that's all Jesus ever did. Just like, he was just consistently interrupted. And so we just read the Bible and we're like, well, what did Jesus do? And well, let's just try to do that. Okay, he ate with people. Well, let's just open our home and eat with people. And so any night of the week, people could just pop in, have dinner with us. And I mean, we shared that dinner table with thousands of people over the years, complete strangers. And there was always enough food. I'm sure it was miraculous. We had this pot, it didn't matter if there were 8 people or 18 people around the table, always enough food. I remember saying to Jesus, I cannot be bothered to stress about how much food we need to buy. So you're just going to need to make that happen. And just consistently, our food bill was tiny. I swear there were adults living in a house and we rarely spend more than 50 or 60 quid a week on food. And we were always well fed and could feed anybody that came to the door as well. So to this day, we don't really know how it all happened, but I'm always very did so.
and you were saying about the house that had a real sort of sense of transformation, because you didn't you have someone say, I might have got the story slightly wrong, so I might be misquoting you, but people saying that, you know, this is a kitchen I used to do drugs in and have drug deals in, and this is the kitchen where I now have had my life turned around in, you know, and it's that God redeeming space as well.
Yeah, one of my great friends, Tammy, it was her crack house years ago. And she celebrated her, well, I mean, she's part of the family now, but at the time she was walking up on her kid's 4th birthday, and she just couldn't believe she had people to finally invite to her son's birthday. And it was literally, she was washing up in the room that had literally destroyed her life for years and years and years. And now she's married with kids and living locally still, and just she's just amazing. Like, she's such an inspiration. And it's incredible, really. I mean, what God does with people's lives and invites us in the journey just to be able to see a little part of it as well. So yeah, there is something really special about the house. We'd even have people just sense the presence of God. I mean, we have people literally just walk in and just know the presence of God and just cry. And I remember one guy saying to us that he used to just come and sit on the bench outside the house, because he knew that, like, for some reason when he was there, it was the only time he ever felt peace. And so, like, getting on with our, you know, stupid daily lives, doing whatever, but actually presence
God still using it.
I transcended anything we could ever do. And we'd hear so many stories about these weird and wonderful things that would happen to people that we just, you know, have no knowledge of at all. But it's just amazing to know kind of when we gave ourselves that space and the things that God just did with what was in our hands, really. So
yeah, it's incredible. Available to God is what sort of he does. You know, you give him your time and your whatever, and he uses it for his glory. So yeah. So you were there for, was it 8 years? You lived in community. Is that right? And now
yeah. And so I handed it over last year for lots of reasons. Just I've always wanted to do this, to foster and to look after kids, and it just kind of felt the right season hand over. And also I just needed a massive rest because it was quite a long time behind that, and so it was just the right time. God sort of had called me on a year or so before, and so and so it's still going. You know, some great girls there, just still loving the community and things like that. Joy Cafe was planted there as well, just as another kind of meeting space for the community, and that's still going strong, and the people who run that still live in community around the square as well. So it is just wonderful, which I love. I mean, I'm glad it just carried on without, you know, I mean, God just transcends our humanity, doesn't he, really? And what we think we need to do or contribute or have responsibility for, he's like, you need to, I've got all of this. So
8 years, there's something about being in there for the long haul as well. 8 years is a long chunk of people's lives and journeys, and actually to, you know, I mean, I did when I was a younger Christian, I did a couple of years out or short-term things, and they were great. They really shaped me. But you know how but when I was actually vicaring, I did 8 years too, in my parish, and you realise that being there week in, week out, day in, day out for prolonged periods of time is so important. That being there and staying there is a significant thing. And like I say, 8 years is a significant season, really.
Yeah. Quite that long, actually. It's nearly 7, I think. But anyway, but 10 years.
Yeah, just 7's a perfect number, but I'm not very good at maths. There's probably an 8 somewhere in the Bible. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my lectures at
college, just an amazing.
Yeah, one of my lectures at college was all into numerology, but it got me completely confused. But then I can't add up to say it. So I was, yeah. And so you're doing something new now as well. So it's almost a case of you put something down, and then you picked up something new and exciting. How was that as a journey? The transition from one thing to another.
Yeah, I'm a massive believer. We were talking a little bit before we started this around vision and around. I think often we think we need to chase a vision for our lives, and we have this goal and we're going to meet it and we're going to try and do everything we can to get there. But for me, that's not the way that my life works. I know there are things that that Lord has wired me for. He's wired me completely for hospitality. He's wired me for doing life. I hate that phrase, doing life, but living life alongside people. That's never go away. And it doesn't really matter what context of my life I find myself in, whether that's number 10, where that's strangers and the homeless and people in addiction, or that's my home sharing it with young people seeking asylum. Like, it's the principle is still the same, the value is still the same. And I get that out of my system. That's just inherently how I'm wired. And so I'm at my most content when I'm within that space. So I think it was a natural. I didn't know it was going to turn out like this. This is all the Lord. I thought I was, there was another few things I was going to have to do, but the doors have just flung open to be able to do this. And it's really above and beyond anything I could ask or imagine in lots of ways. Being able to do it now, I thought I'd have to do it in a few years' time when I was kind of a bit more financially secure and all the rest of it, but God's just opened the doors to enable it to happen. So yeah, it is. I think you just give him what's in your hands and you take the next step and the next step, and you open your eyes one day and you're like, oh, we're here.
Fantastic. And just final question, if you could have a chat, if you could talk to yourself as a young Christian about to start out doing, I don't know, about to move into number 10 or about to push the door, what would you say to yourself? What would you say to a younger version of you, or you just starting out?
Well, what I would have seen, the things that we would have done, where my life would be now when I started, I never would have started, because it would have been. And I think I would say to my younger self, don't overthink it. Just do what's in your hand. Do what you can do right now, even if it's the tiniest little thing. Just give that to God and just watch what he does with it. And I love the Gospels, because constantly throughout, when Jesus is telling parables, it's about these enormous kingdom things that start with like seeds and yeast and these tiny, small. He always says, like, it's going to be tiny and small, but the impact is going to be big. And and I just think that's what it's been like for my life, really. I've just done the next thing. Just do the next thing. Have a rest when you need a rest. Don't massively overthink it. Don't try and strive and push it, but just embrace it, because I think God wants his will for our lives more than we do. He knows us better than we know ourselves. He knows the way that we're wired. And actually, I think just to go with that. Don't try and be something that you're not. And like I say, most things that I've done in life have been literally because I'm too lazy to do anything else. And I haven't got the energy to start, big charities or big organizations. All I got energy for is to open my front door and eat with people. Like, I can do that. But there are some people.
It works. It's changed lives. God's used it. Yeah.
I love it. Amazingly wired for entrepreneurial business and starting amazing organizations, but I'm not, and I don't. That's absolutely fine by me.
I remember when I was in Kingswood, there was this dude who came and did some evangelism stuff with us, and he was one of these sort of guys who looked like a short version of James Bond, and he had all the right answers and all very smooth. And I was a bit jealous and a bit insecure, and I remember God just saying, I won't say his name, but if I wanted to have him, I'd have given his mum twins. Did you? And actually, you're called to be you, and he's called to be him. And too often we compare ourselves to other people's gifts, but actually, it's just being who God's made us is the way we can have contentment.
And I remember it being really distinctly, and I remember because a friend died, sorry, so my phone is broken. A friend died of addiction, and I was just beside myself. And I remember driving down the road, and I remember screaming at God, being like, I just can't do this anymore. I was like, God, what is the formula to stop this stuff from happening? You've got to tell me the formula. Like, what is it? And I was driving down the road where there were all of these amazing different buildings. There were new ones and old ones, and interesting ones and bespoke buildings. And God so clearly said to me, he's like, look what you as humans have done with your art, with your music, with your architecture, with your culture. There is so much variety. There's not even a single snowflake that's the same. Do you not think I want justice delivered in a number of ways? And it just gave me such freedom to then, okay, so how has he wired me for justice? And what can I do? And therefore, just to do that. And there's this lovely phrase that has just been really powerful for me that says, don't be overwhelmed by the world's grief. Do justly now, love mercy now, walk humbly now. You're not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. And that's just been the kind of encouragement. And for me, over my life, is that what can I do within my abilities and capabilities with God's, which is always far more than I can do on my own anyway. But just to kind of, to do that. And actually, there's so many ways that it can be done. But just to embrace that, I think, is part of the journey.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Millie. That's been fantastic. Bless you.